On this episode of Locked On Angels, when Mike Trout speaks, we all listen. Trout spoke to the media on Monday. He shared where he's going to be playing in the outfield and something that he noticed about his approach at the plate. We've got all the details ready to share it with you. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcast, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all this Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed on YouTube, please subscribe and help us to get to 10K by opening day. We're around 8,500 right now, so find 1,500 of your friends and tell them to subscribe to Locked On Angels. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube and leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation.
Thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, we appreciate you being here as we're talking Angels baseball 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, every single weekday. We're entering our fourth season as the hosts of Locked On Angels, and we're lifelong fans of this team, for better and for worse. And right now, we're going through a little bit of worse, right? Would you say?
Yeah.
A little tiny bit of worse, right?
Your optimism is helping us, though, because you say that the Angels are going to make the playoffs this year. And so let's just be clear. John says that. I'm not on board yet. Right. Older, wiser brother is not on board yet. But you help us to get through this, John. So I'm really grateful. And by the way, you didn't say this, and neither did I last year. There was we're going to make the playoffs last year. We knew it was a no expectations sort of season. This year, there are some expectations. And for you, you've said, I could see a route to actually getting to the playoffs, which I tip my cap. I hope that you're right. I think that there's reasons. That's why we have this show, to negotiate and navigate the world of Angels baseball, right?
We're negotiating. One of my favorite things that I saw was I said, I stand by what I say when I say they're going to sneak into the playoffs. And somebody said, I'm going to make a slam dunk from the halfway, or no, I'm going to make a slam dunk from the half court line. I stand by what I say. So I'm getting dunked on with dunk metaphors. Let's go. Hey, listen, Mike Trout spoke to the media yesterday. We finally got an answer to where he's going to end up playing this season. Mike, why don't you take us through the details?
Yeah, he said that he is going to be playing right field to start the season. The decision.
I play right field. It's
waiting
important,
for it.
You got to learn how to hit. You got to learn how to throw. What's it from, everyone? Don't tell him, Mike.
Yeah.
Only the truest of true fans are going to know where that's from.
That is such a niche.
You'd be surprised.
I think people will know.
It's out there.
That's the test. All right. So this decision on Trout playing right field came after he met with Perry Manassian and Ron Washington on Sunday. They discussed a plan to keep him healthy this season. I'm glad that they have a plan to keep him healthy. They decided it would be best to have him move to right field to reduce wear and tear that comes up playing center field regularly, right?
I was going to say, I'm glad they have a plan, but did they really come up with this on Sunday?
Right.
2 days ago?
We've been talking about this for a long time. You just need to listen to Locked On Angels.
Why are Nerd John and Nerd Mike more concerned about this than the actual team? That's what I want to know.
And everydayers, they are concerned about it as well. So,
John, they're not nerds. We're the nerds.
Yeah, we'll take the nerd title. Trout said he will see occasional time in center field and a few games at designated hitter. On the convo with Perry and Wash, Trout said, it went great. We just threw everything on the table, as in what's best for me, body-wise, to keep me on the field. And we came to the conclusion that I'm going to play right field. I like it. I'll try it out. We'll see where it goes. Now, John, remember, and a reporter did ask him about this. Remember, Joe Madden publicly mentioned the idea of Trout moving to a corner spot 3 years ago during spring training. And Trout was like, nah, bro, we're not doing that. He quickly dismissed that idea, said he was the center fielder. This time, though, he's really open to it, and he sees the need for it. He said, if you look the last couple of years, trying to preserve my legs and go run some balls down and right, that's what it came down to, and I'm good with it. I'm ready for that. Trout also said that he's likely to get some days off when he needs them. He said, if I come in and something feels off or something feels sore, I'm going to ask for a day off. I think it's just open communication with Wash and the front office and the coaches. So, John, this is something that you and I and everydayers have been asking for, and now we got it.
Mm-hmm.
So, are you satisfied with this decision?
Yes, he's out of center field. That's all we could ask, is that he moved to a corner outfield spot and DH. Obviously, there's going to be a need for some center field every now and then, which is what he referred to in this report. But this is what we've been asking for. Now, a lot of us assumed it was left field. A lot of us assumed it would be the return of the Trout farm. I think my wife will be disappointed that he's not going to be in left field for the Trout farm. She was excited about that prospect. But the truth is, Mike, he's got to be in a corner outfield spot. And, one of the big reasons they mention, and Ron Washington mentions it later in the report, was that right field is smaller at Angel Stadium, so a little less ground cover. Look, Taylor Ward is a much better left fielder than he is right fielder. Now, Joe Adell was pretty great in right field last season. Obviously, a Gold Glove nomination, but also really significant defensive run save numbers. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Mickey Moniak played some center as well and had some Trout-like plays out there in center field. So I think it does make the most sense. I think it fits where everybody needs to go. Now, we will get into that conversation of what does center field look like, but at this point, this is what you have to do. I understand that 3 years ago, when the question came up, Trout went, nah, but he admitted it here. He said, look at my last few years. And so to keep him healthy and put him in a less strenuous spot, I think is important. And then he also said that he lost weight, and that's something that we had not speculated on, but we saw photos of him from over the offseason, and that is a huge part of why we think he's been injured so much over the years, is just because of the muscle mass that he's carrying. I saw somebody put it really well, I want to say on either Angels Reddit or Twitter, and it was like, the body doesn't know the difference between weight from muscle or weight from fat. And so he carries it all the same, and your body reacts all the same. And the truth is he was a big dude. And so for him to lean out a little bit, I think it's going to be a lot less wear and tear on his entire body. And again, it makes so much sense. Like he was a bulky guy, something that we've been calling for a long time. He's got to shed some of that muscle weight so it's not as strenuous on his body. So I'm happy to see that these moves are being made.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that weight might have an impact on how he swings. We're going to talk about his swing and his approach in the final segment. But Trouty said the first player that he thought of when he was told, hey, we should move you to right field, was Torrey Hunter, who moved to right field when Trout came up. And he said, Torrey's going to be around in camp as a guest instructor, and I'm going to lean on him for advice. He also said he talked to some other players who made that transition. Trout said, I talked to a few guys, and I'll talk to Torrey when he gets here because he did it. There's a lot of guys that moved to right field I'm going to talk to just to see the difference and go out there and get comfortable in spring. And as you mentioned, John, Wash said that the Angels picked right field instead of left field for Trout because right field is a bit smaller at Angel Stadium. And he also said, I think Trout's arm will be fine in right field if he's aggressive. I know that Trout hasn't had that strong throwing arm that he had when he first came up. And we've noticed that a few times from center field as he was throwing to second base or throwing to third. Every once in a while, he throws a dart and it looks great. But then outside of those darts, it doesn't look great. And so if he can be aggressive and hit the cutoff man, I think that he could really play a strong right field. John, the numbers for Trouty in right field are very small. He's played just 17 games in right field and 127 innings, 13 games in 2011 and 4 games in 2012, with 13 of those total games as a starter. He has a -2 defensive run saved. He has a 1.8 UZR in right field. Again, small sample size. But Johnny, are there any concerns that you have about this move? And is there any excitement that we as Angel fans should have because of this move?
Yeah, I think that when Jace Lavalette gets drafted at number 2 by the Angels, he can come up and play center field, and we'll all be very happy with that because he'll be up in August, right, Mike?
Yeah, right.
That's how the Angels do it. But that's a pipe dream, and we've yet to see who exactly will land for the Angels at number 2. It all depends on who the Nationals pick at number 1. But I think that's something to I don't know, look forward to and be excited about. At the same time, I think my concerns are, that arm. I'm actually going to dial up his arm strength because I want to see where he's ranked on Baseball Savant as of last year. But the truth is I'm not disappointed that Joe Adell's not going to be in right field. I have just been, rooting for that guy for a long time. Okay, so Trout's got a -1 arm value. That's based on the outs above average, an arm strength of 84.2 miles per hour. That puts him in the 44th percentile. So he's right smack dab in the middle among outfielders, just a little bit less than that. But coming from right field, look, you're going to have to hit the cutoff man. I think that's going to be key. And if you can do that, then you're going to be able to make those plays across the diamond. But going back to my point about Joe Adell, just seeing him have so much success and rooting for him this past couple of years, and then seeing him do really well defensively and kind of squash that narrative of, oh, he can't play in the outfield. Well, he proved that he could last year.
Right.
And so perhaps there's more of an opportunity for him in center field this season. And then he steps up and really undertakes that role and does really well. Obviously, Mickey Moniak's a part of that equation as well. But so I'm just trying to think of, what is concerning, what's disappointing. And to me, it's like, man, Joe Adell really proved himself out there in right field. But this might be an opportunity for him to prove himself in center field. He's certainly athletic enough to do it. This is where, Mike, the Billy Epler guys that we always talk about that are like super athletic dudes. They can play football, they can play basketball, they can, run track and all that stuff. They can do all those things, but they just don't have the baseball mindset. I think Joe Adell is finally starting to really get that baseball mindset. It's
Agreed.
because of the minds that he's around. And so for him to be an athletic dude in center field who is starting to understand how to play the outfield, started great in right field, figuring that out. Maybe center field is something for him to take on. Again, I know I'm jumping the gun here because we're going to be talking about that in a second, but it will be an interesting dynamic to see Mike Trout in right field. Just watch out for the wall, bro. No.
Yeah.
Ask Taylor Ward, right? That's the important part of the equation.
Yeah. Now, Trouty, you mentioned with Joe Adell's mindset, Trouty always seems to be pretty smart when he's in the outfield. I think he understands that he's not going to be the strong throwing arm guy in the outfield. And so I think he will hit the cutoff man when necessary. I think he will have good roots to the ball. I think he will be somebody that won't run a funky route to try to catch a ball or try to get a ground ball. He'll have to learn right field, just like he had to learn center field when he moved there. And then Joe Adell will have to learn, or Mickey Moniak will have to learn how to hold that spot down. But my money's on a smart Mike Trout figuring that out pretty quickly and being a strong, confident person to whoever is in center field to that left. You know that speed that you have over in right field is going to benefit him. And you also know, again, he runs a good route to the ball and is somebody that will go and get it, and he'll dive when necessary. And I don't think that we're going to need to necessarily rely on his arm strength if he utilizes the cutoff man and they utilize the infielders in the appropriate way.
Yeah. What's funny is his defensive metrics were not declining, but they just weren't as great as they were when he first came up. And then over the last 2 or 3 seasons, when he's actually been on the field, he's actually run some pretty efficient routes and has had good reads off the bat. And so there was a moment in time where the defense ticked up again, which was cool to see. Again, you mentioned his time in right field a long time ago, small sample size. And then, of course, last year was 29 games, small sample size. But in the seasons where he got into more games, 23 and 22, you could see those defensive metrics starting to improve again for Mike Trout. So it's just a matter of time before we see. I do like that Torrey Hunter is going to be there.
Yeah.
Of course, that's usually something that he does. But man, who better to learn from than Torrey Hunter, especially the guy who mentored you when you first came up to the league. So that's going to be exciting to watch as well. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up on the show, who plays center field? Well, we alluded to that a little bit, but we're going to get into the details and tell you who might make for a better center fielder, and we'll get into that in just a minute.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by SelectQuote. You need SelectQuote on your team, especially when it comes to protecting your legacy and your family's financial future. They are one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience. They've helped over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985. Other life insurance brokers offer impersonal, one-size-fits-all policies that are going to cost you more and cover you less. You don't want that. You need SelectQuote. Their licensed insurance agents are going to work for you to tailor a life insurance policy for your individual needs in as little as 15 minutes. If you're in good health, they work with carriers that could get you same-day coverage for up to $5 million with no medical exam required. And these policies are more affordable than you think. You can get coverage for up to $1 million for as little as $20 per month. So head to selectquote.com/lockedon, and a licensed insurance agent is going to call you right away and give you the right policy for your life and for your budget. Again, selectquote.com/lockedon to get started. SelectQuote, they shop, you save.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and every day there's things for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. We're continuing our conversation now that Mike Trout will officially be in right field this season. Who's going to play center field? Two names, obviously, that come to mind immediately for us and for most Angel fans are Joe Adell and Mickey Moniak. Adell has had 15 games in his major league career in center field. Moniak has played 185 games in his career in center field. Initially, we assume Adell will be there due to his improved defense. It's something we talked about in the last segment. Mike, I love the stat that you pulled. Joe was tied for first with Mike Yastrzemski among all qualified right fielders with 6 defensive runs saved in 2024. A huge improvement over previous seasons. Again, squashing that narrative of this defense is terrible, and that just goes to show he's around the right people, I think, in this organization to help him get better out there. But let's look at the numbers overall for each player in their career. Mike, why don't you start us out with Mickey Moniak?
Yeah, Moniak has a 0.5 ultimate zone rating in center field for his career. That measures kind of everything that he does defensively. Last season, he had 800 innings in center field, had a 1.7 UZR in center field. Moniak also had 3 defensive runs saved and 8 outs above average in his career in center field. For Adell, small sample size, 122 innings compared to Moniak's 800 innings just last year. He has a negative 1.7 UZR in center field with a negative 1 UZR last season. So for reference, he had a negative 2.2 UZR in right field up until, or overall in his career. But last season, he really improved at that position in right field. He had a 1.9 UZR. So you can see he got a lot better. He has 3 defensive run saves while in center field, and his outs above average, that number considers him at about league average. But again, hard to read too much into that because it is a small sample size of playing time. So from the defensive numbers, John, initially, Moniak is slightly better than Joe Adell in center field, which means that you got to look at all of the factors. So why don't you talk about offense and what Moniak has done so far in his career?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind for Mickey Moniak is this is another lefty bat that the Angels are sorely lacking. They are in need of some lefty bats. The rumor all offseason was they were looking for a lefty power bat. They never really got that. And when you consider the fact that Moniak can be a power threat, that's something to consider as we talk about his offense. In 2023, he had 14 home runs across 323 plate appearances, had a 280 batting average, a 307 on base, and a 495 slugging.
Wow.
And had a 114 weighted runs created plus, made him 14% better than the league average hitter. Of course, as we all know, back then he had a 2.8% walk rate and a 35% strikeout rate. Guys, those are real bad.
That's the official term, right?
Yes.
Real bad.
And so with he had a 397 BABIP when he put the ball in play. And so that actually helped influence his numbers in a positive direction. And then last year he kind of took a bit of a step back last year. Did improve the walk rate to 5%, and the strikeout rate came down to 27.3%. Still, guys, not great. Not great numbers. He did hit another 14 home runs across 418 plate appearances, but the batting average on balls in play, BABIP, fell to 272. That's more in line with the league average, which was 291 last year. His slash line for last year wasn't great either. 219 batting average, 266 on base, and a 380 slugging with a 79 weighted runs created plus. That puts him 21% under league average. 84th percentile in sprint speed last season. So if you're thinking about stealing bases, that's something that he could put into his game if he's on base. He's been striking out less over time. So for example, from 2021 to now, his strikeout rate has gone down from 43.2% to 39.3%, 35%, and then 27.3% last year. Still not great numbers. And so, there was talk about him making some adjustments at the plate. I'm going to save that for a little bit later. And Mike, why don't you talk about Joe Adell?
Yeah, his slash line last year, 211, 268 on base, and a 381 slugging. That's actually for his career. I apologize. With a 78 weighted runs created plus. He has a strikeout percentage of 32.2% over that time. So here's last season: 207 batting average, 280 on base, and a 402 slugging percentage with a 90 weighted runs created plus. Remember, he really picked up and adjusted what he was doing at the plate and picked up as a hitter at about July last year when they figured out some swing stuff for him. And that's why those numbers are really low, because he really struggled. Started the year great, then really struggled in May and June, and then July started to hit a whole lot better. The benefit of Joe Adell in this lineup, John, is his power. He had 20 home runs last year, and he got his strikeout rate down to 27.9%. His BABIP, not as great as Moniak's, and it's below league average. It was 244 last season, and it's been lower than his previous marks in previous seasons. So that's where he stands. And the question really for center field is, do they have Adell go there? Do they have Moniak go there? Moniak kind of is the benefit on defense. Adell is more maybe the benefit on offense, although they can be kind of similar. And then, John, there is the conversation about a potential platoon. I'm trying to put all those words together.
That's hard to say.
Potential platoon. And that is an option, right?
Yeah. I mean, the fact that Joe Adell, if they do platoon, would only come in against lefty pitchers, that to me, it's not enough time for him. It's not enough plate appearances. It's not enough for him at the plate. And I would like to see more of him for sure. There was an interesting conversation, and Locked On Everyday, or Wes, brought this up to me. And it's funny because I happened to hear it on Rates and Barrels, the athletic podcast with Eno Saris. And he mentioned that he sees Joe Adell improving in his on-base percentage, and that could make a huge change for him. And the reason why he said that is because he was reminded of Chris Davis, Orioles Chris Davis, not A's Chris Davis, not Crush Davis. And he said that Chris Davis took a long time, until about 27 years old, before he really broke out and started hitting a ton of home runs. And by virtue of that, his on-base percentage went way up because he was walking more, because pitchers were afraid to throw to Chris Davis. And so when they did make a mistake in the zone, they knew that they were going to get crushed. And he says, I could see the same thing happening with Joe Adell, because all the metrics about bat speed and exit velocity and max exit velo, they're trending toward those Chris Davis numbers. And if Joe Adell can bring down that chase rate and start taking more walks, start, attacking the zone on good pitches, and it all seems like very elementary and fundamental, but the truth is Joe Adell's had a tendency to chase out of the zone when he struggled in the past. And so if he could be a little more patient, take his walks, and pitchers become more afraid to throw to him, when they do throw to him, he's going to be a really powerful bat. So yeah, check out that Rates and Barrels conversation. It was during the AL West preview episode of Rates and Barrels, one of my favorite baseball podcasts to listen to, because I can put it on for a long drive and they just talk, and it's really easy to listen to. So anyway, great conversation there. As far as these two go, Mike, I think you just got to play it by ear. Do you need the defense from Moniak in center field on a specific day against a specific pitcher? You know, if you're putting out Yusei Kikuchi, right, who has a tendency to be a fly ball pitcher at times, then perhaps you do have Moniak out there in center field. This could all change when we get to spring training and we see both these guys getting reps out there. Mike, another wrinkle that we need to add to this conversation, and we've seen him out there before, is Luis Rengifo. He's played some outfield. He's played center field in the past. So that's another thing that they're doing this offseason, is giving him some reps during spring training in the outfield. So that's going to make for an interesting conversation piece as well once we start getting into these games. So honestly, my preference here, I would love to see Jo Adell get more of an opportunity. And I'm sure there are people who feel just as passionate about Mickey Moniak getting his opportunity. One thing that's clear is that both these guys need consistent at-bats. That's one thing that you and I have been pounding our chests over for a couple of years now. Jo Adell has needed a full season's worth of plate appearances. Mickey Moniak is always better when he's consistently in the lineup, getting consistent plate appearances. And it's just a fact of life. When these guys get consistency and they're at the plate at a pretty frequent rate, then they're going to be better. So the truth is I believe they're going to have to play it by ear based on the situation, based on who's pitching, but also try to find a way to give these guys some good, consistent at-bats throughout the course of the 2025 season.
Johnny, we want Mike Trout on the field, and we want Mike Trout to be the Mike Trout that he was back in 2019, right? Mm-hmm. We want that Mike Trout, or even the Mike Trout that hit 40 home runs in 119 games just a couple of years ago. The tension, though, that I think hasn't been discussed, but Mike Trout has noticed, is that when he has played, he hasn't been Trout-like. In fact, Mike is hitting .252 with an 860 OPS in 111 games the past 2 years. And because of that, he's recognized that he has to look at his approach at the plate. And he said that the Angels showed him some video while he was hurt last year, and he recognized that his swing had changed. Trouty said that the change affected his swing decisions so that he was chasing more pitches out of the zone and not walking as much. We've talked often on this show about that high fastball and how he would chase that high fastball, and he did make some adjustments. We have a whole episode, I think, from 2 seasons ago where you broke down the adjustments that Mike Trout was making on that high fastball. So he still has his batter's eye, but he noticed that he was chasing, not walking as much, and he said that he wants to adjust that he needs to adjust a swing, and he needs to adjust swing decisions. That's something that he found because he got into a bad habit that he was doing over time, and he created that bad habit, according to Trouty. He said, now I'm just trying to get back to where I was when I was getting on base and having a good strike zone. Trout also said that he lost a little bit of weight. You mentioned this, and that he feels a little lighter, feels a little faster, and that was his goal coming into spring training. John, there was a great video, I believe it was on Twitter, of Mike Trout hitting a home run 2012, 2013. Mm-hmm. Very different swing. Very different swing. And a young, lighter Mike Trout swings the bat very differently. And I think that that's what he noticed in the video of himself. And then, yeah, of course, injuries and getting into bad habits and actually being a bit more anxious at the plate rather than being a bit more patient at the plate is very un-Trout-like. And so I'm glad that he's noticed that there were some things that need to be adjusted and that he's beginning to work on them right now as he begins spring training.
Well, I can tell you exactly what it is. And this is the psychological aspect of baseball that we don't often account for. Mike, where did he bat for all those years, and who was he batting in front of for all of those years?
Yeah.
It was the 2-hole, and it was Albert Pujols. And then over the last couple of years, they were trying to figure out which combination of Ohtani and Trout, or Trout and Ohtani, worked better, and they pretty much landed on Ohtani batting second and Trout batting third.
Yeah.
And I think the mindset for Mike Trout has been totally changed between being in the 2-hole and then batting third for this team. And when you're batting third, the typical old school thought is your best hitter goes third, right? And we're actually going to talk about lineup construction here later this week. I'm really excited to get into that. Some interesting stats that I think are going to make us reconsider the lineup construction that we might already have in mind or that we've already kind of heard of from this team.
Yeah.
But I'll say this. I think the difference between batting second and batting third perhaps really got to Mike Trout because that does affect your swing decisions. That does affect you trying to chase a ball out of the zone to make contact and drive in somebody, right? Because more often than not, Ohtani's on base. And so Trout comes up third and he's trying to drive in Ohtani, right? And so I think that totally changes who you are as a hitter at the plate, and it affects your swing decisions. And yes, Trout was chasing a whole lot more. He was chasing that high fastball a whole lot more. Mike, there was I think it was the 2019 MVP season where his on-base percentage was the highest in the league. And he's done that a few times, I think.
Yeah.
And that has everything to do with, yes, the batting average and getting on base, but also taking your walks. And in the past, you and I have brought up the conversation of how frustrating it can be when Trout takes the walk when he should mash and try to get some runs in. But you know what? Sometimes that's just what you got to do. I'll be interested to see how this lineup is constructed once they get into the season, but I'm really looking forward to our conversation. Now, Trout did say that he took notice of being number 39 in the top 100 right now. And he said, I saw that they're going off the last couple of years. I haven't been out there. That's their ranking. I know where I stand. But he said it motivated him because it says stuff like that fires you up a bit. So I think with this conversation in the books of where is Trout going to play, he's lost some pounds, he's slimmer. And if he stays on the healthy side and stays on the field, then we're going to see a productive Trout. I appreciate the fact that he recognizes some areas in which he has slipped and that the team brought him video to say, hey, here's the issue. Let's correct that. I think all good things are ahead for Mike Trout in 2025.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB with our friend Sully. You can find his show on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey, give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button, help us get to 10K by opening day, and then get in the comments section because we'd love to hear from you. Mike, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show?
Well. Mike Trout spoke to the media, and somebody else spoke to the media.
Who?
His name is Artie Moreno. He spoke to Jeff Fletcher of the OC Register, had some interesting things to say specifically about why they didn't sell the team. We're going to talk about what he said tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
All right. We hope you'll come back and join us for that conversation. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Wednesday.
He didn't sell the team because we didn't have enough money to buy the team from him. So we're still working on that, Artie. We're still working on that.
Go fund me.